Our boy Will has finally come across living, breathing human beings and elves, and he has found other people who have blood circulating within their bodies finally. And this episode was it was really good, right? This episode was really good. It was interesting, it was cute, and it was telling. Now that Will has finally come across other people who live within this world, he's beginning to learn a little bit more about what and who occupy this world. And one thing that we learned real quick before I talk about the whole episode is that demons do in fact still kind of infest the world, and they are still a big, large problem within the world that hasn't completely been eradicated. And if anything, they still attack quite frequently, and that is still a huge problem for the people who are living in the world. When I say people, I mean, I'm sure there's other folks, but, elves, humans, orcs, I don't know, whatever, dwarves, I don't even know. I don't know what the limitations of who and what kind of people live in this world, but I'm sure that it's a huge problem for everybody that lives within this world that Will is now living in. So with the episode, though, the episode finally starts off with Will, continuing on his journey and kind of trying to figure out, where are other people. And he keeps heading. If he came from south, I guess he keeps heading north, essentially. And he finally found, some ruins of where people used to live at some point. And that's kind of what he keeps stumbling upon. He keeps stumbling upon fragments of where people used to once be. But that is no longer the case. And then he finally gets attacked by like a boar, and that boar was also claimed by somebody else. And he finally is able to make a friend. He's able to make a elf friend, and he's able to have good conversation and good dialogue with this elf friend. Finally, somebody else who is living and breathing, who he can really have conversation with. And he shares a meal. He shares the boar meal with this elf who seems to be like a hunter. And he tries to make friends with him, and he, the elf ends up dissing Will and basically saying, like, hey, don't follow me or nothing like that. And Graceful, so the goddess of light, shows him a vision, and the vision was of his new elf friend potentially being attacked. So Will essentially goes and in a panic to try and make sure that doesn't happen. And he comes across other humans. He saves them from being attacked by arrows. And then he realizes that it was his friend that he just made doing the attacking. He subdues them. He overpowers them. He just I can't reenact it here, but he pounds his foot down because they're attacking him with some magic. He pounds his foot down to basically just negate all the magic. And this guy was just this elf was like, oh my god, how strong are you? And he just grabs him. This is a controller. He just goes like, Gah! He just knocks him out real fast. And I thought, I was like, oh my god, Will, OP, bro. But he subdues everybody that was attacking that village. The village tries to decide what to do with them, and instead of hanging them, Will finally steps in from the goddess's light and says that's not what he should do. He'll pay off their debts. The goddess of light knows the assignment. She sprinkles some god light on everybody, and then they're like, okay, cool. He hires the elf to then go to the village that he came from to go kill the demons that attacked the village that the elf came from. And that's kind of where we get left off on in the episode. Overall, though, I mean, I said this during the reaction, but I feel like the anime has progressively gotten better as it's gone on. And now that we're out of the beginning section of him with Gus and Blood and Mary, and now he's actually setting foot and going on his own journey, I feel like the anime is only going to go up from here, especially when we watch the ED. We're going to see all these different people that he's going to touch base with, and he's going to get to know, right? We see adventurers, we see other elves, we see priests, we see another girl who looks like she's like a priest of light or something like that. So we get to see all these different folks that Will's going to end up interacting with at some point during the anime. Will it all be season 1? I mean, that I'm unsure of. I really don't know if it's all going to be season 1, but regardless, I am excited for all these folks, starting with Elf Boy this episode, that he's going to get to interact with as the anime kind of unfolds. And like I said, it's been really just getting better from here. I felt like last week's episode was really emotional with him having to bury with Will having to bury Mary and Blood, with him saying his emotional goodbye to Gus, him realizing the weight that's going to be on his shoulders as he journeys on, and how he's going to have to spread the Goddess of Light's word everywhere, which I think he finally maybe found a couple of believers here in this village today. But I just really find it really fascinating, interesting, and I think it's really good. The one critique that I did have that it's a little confusing, not confusing, I guess, but it's weird is during the beginning of this episode, Will kills a lizard beast thing, and when he kills it, right, the lizard beast dissipates into the wind, right? Like his body just like becomes dust, kind of like a vampire, right? Like when you hit a vampire with a stake, it just kind of like becomes dust. And when he hits the boar just dies, right? The boar bleeds out. So it's like, what's the cadence for what dissipates and what doesn't? Like, I don't like when anime decides to treat certain creatures or something like they're different. It's just very odd. It's a very odd choice. Like, why wouldn't the beast thing, man, person, demon thing bleed out as normal? Like, why does it just dissipate? Maybe we'll learn more about that. But that was one thing that I noticed. I was like, kind of makes it feel like a video game world, not a fantasy world, when those kinds of things happen. But regardless, really good episode overall. That was my only critique about this episode, and very interested to see what ends up coming next for Will and his journey. But I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. I hope you guys did too. If you guys missed our reaction to this week's episode, make sure you guys go check out the video coming up on screen right now. That's our reaction of today's episode. And I'll see you guys. I'll see you, my friends, next week. Peace out.